This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're fortunate tonight to have as our guest the head of the Department of Public Safety, who is now the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency Director, Spencer Collier. Spencer's a former legislator from Mobile, and he's been our Alabama Law Enforcement Agency Director for several years now. We're glad to have him on the show. Thank you, Spencer.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time. Spencer, well, y'all is a Troy University graduate. I didn't know that. We were sitting here waiting before the show started. But he grew up in Mobile, in South Mobile County, and he is a family man. He's got is your wife from Mobile too?
She is.
Mobile County, and so Spencer was born and raised in his district. Ran for the legislature in 2002 as a young man, was elected to the legislature and served 2 4-year terms, and was elected to his third term and beginning his third term in 2011. A guy who sat close to him in the legislature. They'd served together for about 8 or 9 years, and he happened to be elected governor. Dr. Robert Bentley was representing Tuscaloosa County, and Spencer was representing Mobile County. And as would be the case when you serve in the legislature with people, you become good friends. And Dr. Bentley became governor and asked Spencer, who was a trooper by profession. He is a longtime state trooper, made a career of it, majoring in criminal justice and political science at Troy University, and went back home to Mobile and became a trooper and was in administration and served in the legislature. But I've taken all your stuff, but I want to tell folks some of your background and everything. But now, when he appointed you in 2010, after he was elected in 2011, it was the Department of Public Safety.
Homeland Security.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We had, but it was not. Who was the Department of Public Safety Director?
Hugh McCall. Hugh McCall served as the director.
He was Riley's, wasn't he?
No, Chris Murphy and Chris left in 2010.
Okay.
Hugh came in with me, and I went to Homeland Security, and Colonel McCall went to Public Safety.
I had forgotten that. Was Homeland Security a new department, wasn't it?
Homeland Security stood up in actually 2003. Alabama was the first state in the nation to create a state Homeland Security.
Who was before you then?
Jim Walker, Colonel Jim Walker was the first, and then Art Faulkner served briefly, and now in emergency management.
So he named you Homeland Security Director.
Correct. I was his first and I guess only Homeland Security Director under the legislation that combined public safety and consolidated state law enforcement into the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency. Then came over as the Secretary.
How many years were you Homeland Security Director?
4 years.
4 years then, to 14.
That's correct.
And then Spencer, in the first part of the second term, in 15, y'all passed legislation. You weren't in the legislature, but legislation. When did he start floating that idea about consolidating the agency?
Well, you know, truthfully, Governor Bentley and I discussed this in December of 2010. He was the governor-elect. It was a phone call when he asked me to serve as Homeland Security Director. And he said he wanted to look at that as we went on consolidating state law enforcement services. That was probably sped up. The legislature also had it on their agenda, and it was actually the 2014 session. It passed.
The last of the quadrennium.
It did, and then it immediately abolished Homeland Security, created the position of Secretary, and then gave me 18 months to put together the plan to combine 12 agencies or functions into one state law enforcement agency.
Did Colonel McCall, he was going to retire anyway, wasn't he?
Well, correct. He retired after a long career. He came on as a cadet, gave invaluable service to
he was ready to retire anyway.
Well, what's ironic is I worked for Colonel McCall as a trooper, so to come on and serve with him, and then now absorb that agency into ALEA. It's an exciting time. You know,
talking about you being from the southern part of Mobile County, you couldn't be any more in southern.
No, that was it.
You're the most southern district, legislative-wise, in the state.
I never had to worry about them drawing my district out.
That's right.
It was water after me.
You know, Spencer, when you think about that, though, and I guess you served all your time in Mobile as a trooper, didn't you?
No, I actually left going into my second term. I went to work for a law firm, and then did some private consulting doing investigative work.
In Montgomery?
In Mobile.
But you're always in Mobile, though.
My whole life until here.
What I'm saying, getting around to saying to you, You know, unless you have traveled the state, which I'm sure you have now as Homeland Security and A director, oh, don't we have a beautiful, diverse state?
Oh, we do.
People don't
We do.
realize the diversity of this state geographically.
Right.
It's like night and day.
Right.
You go on an October afternoon. I never forget. I once a year or so I visit my newspapers, and I plan to travel up to northeast Alabama during the late October.
Beautiful.
That Gunnersville, Scottsboro, Fort Payne area. And I'm gonna tell you something. I remember I got a little paper up in Stevenson. Do you know what Stevenson?
I do. Yes.
And a guy up there, I go up and see him, and he carries my column. And I remember one Thursday afternoon, late in October, driving down that Highway 72, and I told him when I got to Scottsboro to the Daily Sentinel, I said, I don't think anywhere in the country, Asheville, North Carolina, hadn't got a thing on this part of Alabama. And then you go all the way down to Mobile, the pristine beaches of Baldwin County. And I love my area of the state here in the Wiregrass, but we really just mostly got pine trees and flat land, you know. But the state's beautiful, isn't it?
Well, it is, and you know, it's probably only 5 or 6 years ago that I discovered Little River Canyon in that area.
Exactly.
And it's as beautiful as anywhere in Tennessee or North Carolina. It's really it's a hidden gem for the state.
You probably were already Homeland Security right before you saw that part of the state, weren't you?
I think I was still serving in the legislature. My pastor in Mobile had a cabin in the area, and you know, shame on me, I had no idea of how diverse and how beautiful it was, the canyon itself, and got where I spent a lot of time there. And we still periodically go to that area. You know, Fort Payne, Dogtown. I'm probably one of the few Alabamans know where Dogtown is, and absolutely love the area.
There's really a buck's pocket.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I told you before the show, I've got my book coming out. It's called Alabama Political Stories. And in that book, I talk about the different areas of the state and their certain things like Buck's Pocket. Why is Goat Hill called Goat Hill? You know, why is there was the first Monday trade day in Scottsboro. There was a traditional thing. Mule Day in Hamilton.
Mule Day, yeah.
Hamilton, and just different things. But let me go back, if you can. Didn't mean to digress a little bit, but back to that the merger of the ALEA. I want our viewers to understand exactly. I don't know if many of them really realize that. They probably think of you as the highway director. I mean the public safety director. The public safety director is you head of the state troopers.
Right.
The Spencer Collier is head of the state troopers. Well, it's more than that because you were Homeland Security. We didn't have that in 2003. Explain the details, if you would.
Sure.
You're over the entire law enforcement. Everybody who wears a state law enforcement hat now is under one agency, Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, ALEA, and they're on the back of the troopers' things now. Tell the details in layman terms of exactly what happened with that.
Well, and you're seeing more and more of it across the country. What we did is kind of 2 study committees were done, one led by the legislature and one led by the administration, and I was fortunate enough the governor let me chair that. And what we discovered is we had a lot of different agencies in Alabama, state law enforcement agencies, that were performing very like missions. And what wound up happening is that we would have one agency performing a mission and the second agency was doing it. Let me give you an example. If you're a commercial vehicle in Alabama, prior to the creation of ALEA, you had 3 state agencies that regulated commercial vehicles: Department of Revenue, Public Service Commission, and then the Department of Public Safety's Motor Carrier Unit. Those 3 agencies necessarily didn't always communicate well together. Well, if the agencies responsible for the enforcement aren't communicating, what about the poor private businessman who's maybe an owner-operator? So we looked at those type things, and we wound up combining 10 agencies, but really 12 functions.
There were 10 agencies that had law enforcement people?
Actually, there was 22 in the state that had
Who
law
all
enforcement.
had law enforcement? I don't mean name all
Steve,
20.
pretty much every regulatory board has.
PSC definitely had them.
PSC, Revenue, ABC, Ag and Industries, CJIS, Homeland Security had law enforcement, Department of Public Safety.
Were these career troopers, though? Or career?
Only the guys in public safety were troopers. So we had these other agencies, we merged them together. That's what we've been doing for the last 18 months, is trying to find the best model. And really, Steve, it looks like what a major metropolitan law enforcement would look like. We now take state law enforcement, and we have a uniform division. That's the Department of Public Safety. So that's the highway patrol, the troopers you're going to see, and that is the backbone and the infrastructure of state law enforcement. But additionally, now the Marine Patrol, it used to be the Marine Police and the Department of Conservation, is now brought under the
How many were in there? Ballpark, not exactly.
On the Marine Police side, it was about 60, and I think we wound
when you
up.
took it over, how many state troopers were the ball? I don't mean exactly the ballpark.
Yeah. Well, in the Highway Patrol, it was about 380.
380
in
Highway Patrol, and then you
had about 70 or 80 in ABI.
Oh, so ABI was under the
It was.
So you had 38 actual road troopers and about 80 ABI guys under public
safety.
Then who was the biggest one that came in and merged? Was it PSC or Conservation?
Conservation, no, actually probably ABC. ABC had about 130 enforcement.
And they came under y'all?
They did, the enforcement. So all their enforcement came under. So it's both alcohol enforcement and narcotics. ABC had a very robust narcotics agency. That's now under ALEA. So in addition to the uniform side, we have the investigative side where we combined ABI, ABC, CGIS, Homeland Security Investigations, AG Investigations, and now it's the State Bureau of Investigations. And we currently have almost 200 special agents working that.
Well, let me ask you this question. Did each of those guys, like they had learned and been trained under Conservation or PSC or ABC? Do you have a subsecretary that oversees those guys?
I have a director of public safety that oversees the uniform division, and I have an investigative director over SBI that oversees and runs the day-to-day of investigations.
So a lot of those conservation people came under that area.
Correct.
And all the ABI people went under there.
Correct. ABI came under SBI, what we call SBI now, and then the Marine Police came under DPS. And a difference that the public should see is what we used to call Marine Police is now Marine Patrol, and they're actually wearing the uniform. They are troopers. It's funny, I've had calls saying, when did state troopers get boats? But those old Marine Police boats are now Marine Patrol, and they're troopers that work that.
Spencer, what about this? What about, how many lieutenants do you have under you that are like head? You call them, what do you call them?
Well, on the DPS side, it's a director, carries the rank of colonel. On the SBI side, it's a director, and goes by the title director. And then I have a chief of staff. And really, that's it.
Are they work at your pleasure?
They do. Yeah, they do.
Are most of them career people, though?
They are. And when the legislation
But you could have brought a layman in, couldn't you?
No, one of the restrictions on the legislation, this one was a little different.
Okay.
It said the leadership appointments had to come from what we call a legacy agency.
That's good.
So
you couldn't bring some political guy. The governor couldn't say, I got old Joe Smith who ran my campaign in Huntsville. I want to make him head of the conservation. That's good.
Yeah, it was in the statute, and even the position of secretary. That's the one the governor.
Oh, so you've got to have that too.
It says you must have substantial law enforcement experience. It's the only one that you can bring that wasn't in state law enforcement. But I was. That's the background I came in. But all the other leadership positions,
all your people have to have that.
Everyone is career state law enforcement.
You probably knew a lot of them, didn't you?
I did. And Gene Wiggins is our SBI director. He and I came on together as troopers. John Richardson is our DPS director, our colonel, career ABC agent, also worked in executive protection. So yeah, either working as a trooper, working as a legislator, got to know most in-state law enforcement, and one of the advantages of the legislation gave me the ability, of course, with the governor's authority, to make these appointments. And I think I've made some really, really good appointments.
Do you bring them in every week, or y'all talk every day, or what?
Something that's different, it's unusual. My office is physically located at the RSA headquarters. I brought those two directors in, and their office is mine.
Which building are you in?
We're in the RSA headquarters, in the old CGIS location. And then across the street is the DPS SBI building. But those two leaders, their offices are next to mine, where we have that daily contact. And I know day to day what DPS is doing and what SBI is doing. And most importantly, what we're forcing them to do is work together. That didn't always happen in the past.
Do you have the conservation, the requirements educationally to be a trooper or / conservation officer? What are the educational and requirements? And the merit system, they're picked under the merit system.
That's
Everybody
correct.
is under
That's
the merit
correct.
system. So they pass a written exam, a mental exam, and a physical exam.
That's correct.
Before they're selected.
That's right.
Then they go through another rigorous training after that selection process.
That is correct. The minimum education, according to the merit system, says a GED or a high school diploma. I'm going to be candid. It's difficult to get on with just that.
Because of the test.
Sure.
It will. Our merit system weighs heavily in favor of military.
Right. So generally, we're hiring individuals that's either coming out of the military or
they get weighted in that merit system.
That is correct. So they're either having military experience or prior law enforcement experience. I don't want to be discouraging, but it's very difficult for someone to come out of high school and not have that experience and get on with us. Unlike
because that education is part of the evaluation of hiring.
Sure. It helps in the scoring. Now on the SBI side, now it's a little tougher. It's not a little tougher. It's a lot tougher, and it requires either college or equivalent law enforcement investigative work. And we purposely set that standard high, where we're only getting the best in SBI. One of the biggest differences now, we can do direct hires in the SBI. In the past, you may remember with ABI, they had to be an ABI agent, you had to be a trooper. Well, now we have the ability, let's say, if you have a career homicide detective from Birmingham or Montgomery, they have the ability to apply with SBI and get hired directly. That has not happened in a long time.
Spencer, as far as your time is concerned, do you feel, it really doesn't necessarily help the department, I would guess it does, to do PR stuff like this? I mean, I bet you get a lot of requests to be on television shows and radio shows and things. So you have to kind of gauge your time, because otherwise you'd be doing this kind of stuff all the time, wouldn't you?
Well, and I've got a good staff that helps me coordinate that. It's a little bit of my background. I spent 4 to 5 years, almost 5 years as a PO for the troopers. So
okay.
I have a natural affection for doing that. I believe that getting in front of the people and educating, or if you make changes, inform the public of that. So depending on what's going on, if the legislature's in session, I have to ramp that down, because I have to be involved with what the legislature's doing. But outside of that, we generally try to do at least 1 or 2 a week, and it's all over the state. And part of my mission as a secretary is to promote both the DPS, our troopers, and our special agents, and bring to mind what we're facing, budget difficulties, the feedback from the public, good, bad, or indifferent. And I firmly believe in strong public relations. And we have full-time troopers that do that throughout the state, where if I'm not available, they can be there and be a spokesperson for the agency.
Especially on a given day, how many troopers will be on the road?
It's probably going to surprise you, but there's certain days we could have as many as 100 patrolling the interstates during the day. There's certain times that number could be half of that. Now, what is frightening, and I think it's important to tell the truth and get this information out, and it's part of my job to fix it. There's times at night we have 6 to 8 working the entire state. Yes, sir. From midnight to 6 a.m. And
how would you get to a wreck? It's way up in the northeast corner.
You drive a long time. And I did it when I was a trooper. At midnight, I'd cover multiple counties, and response time is great, and that's when you rely on local law enforcement.
I see. They're there.
They'll get there and secure the scene.
That's right,
until you can get there. Now, we're wanting to fix that. That number is unacceptable.
So your folks are better served on the interstates, aren't they?
Well, they are, but our troopers are kind of a misnomer as our highway patrol. We're called the highway patrol, but it's a true state police. Like you go to Mississippi, the highway patrol is restricted to state and federal highways, and that's not the case in Alabama. Anywhere in the state, they have authority.
Talking about that, and I've talked about this in my column and on television. This budget crisis that we're in, and you serve in the legislature, and you saw it coming over the years.
I did, yes, sir.
380 troopers is not enough troopers to cover the state. We're a fairly large size state, but geographically we're a pretty big size state.
We are, and it's we discussed earlier. It's pretty diverse. If you look throughout the state, we got certain counties in the Black Belt that don't have cities above 5,000, where we are the only law enforcement. There may be a small sheriff's office with 4 or 5 deputies. The services we provide there are huge.
So you've got to give more weight to those counties?
Well, on the patrol side, we base it basically on population, but what's really not known is on the investigative side. If there's a murder in the Black Belt, or if there's a murder in the Macon County area, we work that. Now, we work it very closely with the sheriff's office, but we go in and handle those investigations.
They don't have staff like Hoover.
No,
Who,
right,
who would,
correct,
who,
correct.
who
And
would
it's-
take care of it?
And by no means is that a slight on those agencies. They're just small. They don't have the time to devote to that.
Who
extra
would never
training.
ask you to come to help?
No, but we're there. We have good partnerships with them, but we're needed to provide those services in the very rural counties. So when we talk about losing troopers or losing agents, unfortunately, it's going to affect the areas that need it the worst. It's going to be the areas that are already socioeconomically depressed. In addition to that, if we lose troopers, that's where they're going to be lost from, or we lose agents where it's going to be.
And so policing drunk driving or speeding or hazardous things like that in a metropolitan area, the Metropolitan Police going to catch them. They're going to be the one to catch them.
Yeah, that's correct. And they're, even though we have state police powers anywhere, we challenge our guys. We need to be focused on the rural areas.
Is that right?
That is correct. Those larger cities, particularly Mobile, Montgomery, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Dothan, there's times when we're asking them for help. They generally handle everything in their city limits, everything. And then we handle it outside of that if it's traffic related.
Will Dothan go outside their city limits sometimes? Will they?
Yeah, I think all those
cities
municipal agencies will. They have a police jurisdiction, generally 3 to 5 miles, but the services they offer there are limited.
If it's a wreck right side of Tuscaloosa city limits, they're going to go out there and service it.
They're at least going to go stand by. If it's a property type, they're probably going to investigate it. If it's an injury, they're going to ask for us to come, or if it's in the police jurisdiction. And a lot of that really gets down to the relationship we have with those local agencies.
Spencer, what I want to get to, though, is what I was getting around to about being a big state geographically.
Right.
And 380 guys possibly on the road. First of all, what I was going to ask you, too, on holidays, you have more out there, don't you?
We do. And one of the great things about ALEA is us all coming together is now I have the ability to even tell those special agents, you're going to put a Class B uniform on, you're going to get out and work.
During Christmas.
Exactly, work highway patrol.
They
So we can
get
increase
overtime for that?
that. No, unless they're on a federal grant. Oftentimes, through DOT, we'll get federal grants to work additional speed overtime or DUI overtime. But whether they're getting overtime or not, in those specialized periods, we're going to put as many as possible.
How many hours a week does a trooper put in?
Well, they're supposed to work at least 40. Of course, there's certain situations where they're working way above that. And
Christmas time, they're working on
yes, well, they are.
So when you come on to be a trooper, you expect to maybe spend holidays on.
Yeah, it's
when you became a trooper,
yeah, it's understood. It's understood.
You were going to spend your Thanksgiving in your car.
It was. I think I spent my first 6 Christmases working.
Is that right?
First 8 years of my career.
So every trooper's out there Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Yes.
All 380 of them.
Yes,
are out.
You're
Okay.
Well, maybe not all 380, but we're going to greatly increase our presence. We have certain travel periods that the data shows.
4th of July.
4th of July is a big one. New Year's, Labor Day, Memorial Day. We're going to ramp up our manpower during that time. But you're right. Now we're up from that 380. That's when I took over. We're up to about 420 now.
Not much.
It's still not up right. It's to kind of give you a number to really kind of put it in perspective. University of Alabama we partnered and did a study for us. We should have over 1,000. So we're at 40%.
That's what I was thinking.
40%.
I was using that statistic. Folks, we're supposed to have 1,000 troopers, and we got 400.
400. That's correct.
Now, I was told, Spencer, you probably know this, that Maryland, which is almost the same population, but about a third of the size, has 2,000 troopers.
I don't know if they're quite 2,000, but it's well over 1,000, and it's one of the states we looked at comparatively. Now, I've talked to some legislators.
Because population-wise.
Right, but I've talked to some legislators that are appalled by that number, but what I think
appalled by Maryland having so many?
And just doesn't even want to consider the possibility of us ever getting there. And that may not be realistic, but what is realistic is we've got to aim towards that 1,000 number. If we get to 500 or 600 or 700, that would be great. I'd love to see that in my tenure. Ultimately, the ones that's suffering is going to be those that need it the most. So when I talk to those that are appalled by those numbers or challenge me on those numbers, what I say to them is, come see what we do. It's more than just writing a speeding ticket or putting a DUI in jail. We've got over 20 open homicides that we're working right now. Unfortunately, I think we even have members of the legislature that's not informed to what we do as a state law enforcement agency. Fingerprints at the state level, we handle all that. The Criminal Justice Information Network, we handle all of that. Alcohol enforcement, narcotics enforcement. We do all those things. A very, very diverse state law enforcement agency. And unfortunately, a lot of people just put us in a narrow lane of it's just highway patrol.
Spencer, this budget crisis, though, it would even make you lower than 380, wouldn't it?
It would, Steve. What the governor vetoed was approximately $38 million out of the general fund. To put that in perspective, last year, just to be level funded, we're at $55 million. And to give you an idea how that's been cut, go back to 2008. Just public safety alone in 2008 was over $80 million. We operated last year at 55 million. We think that's a fair number.
So you dropped your budget from 80 to 55 million?
From 08 till now, it went from 80 to 55 million.
You dropped almost half.
Yes, sir. And then now they want to add an additional cut and drop it down to 38.
Good Lord. Did you talk to Steve Klaus? What did he say?
Probably more than Steve wants me to talk to him. I've talked to Steve at length.
What does he say when you say that?
He's trying, and I believe he's trying. I think Steve, I served with Steve, he's a great guy. I think they're trying. It gets back to this, as you know, I knew during my time, the general fund's broke. We've got to come up with a system to fix that. There's got to be some growth revenue in the general fund. Just has to be.
What do you think is going? Do you think? What do you think finally's going to resolve this thing? A special session is going to have to be, but they pretty much ignored the governor's request.
What I really think is we've got to hold appropriators accountable. It's more than saying I'm pro law enforcement. Well, if you're pro law enforcement, you got to take a difficult vote every now and then. Then go home and educate your constituency. This is why I had to do that. I don't think there's any citizen out there that expects public safety or any state agency to make money off the citizens. No one wants that. We don't want that. But I think they do expect us to perform and give those basic services. And right now we don't have the revenue to do that. 38 million is going to decimate us.
Here's a thought. I was just thinking about this. What would be wrong with raising a fee for someone who got a speeding ticket and giving it to the public safety
and unfortunately, most of the public, not most, but we hear it a lot from the public that, well,
it's pretty high anyway.
Yeah, it is, that you're reaching a quota.
I see. Yeah.
Steve, I think we're getting $1 to $2 off of every ticket. Most of that money stays local, 80 to 90%.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So that goes to that local county clerk or to their local judicial system. We're at $1 to maybe $2. The exception being the DUI, and we have some special appropriations off of that. But tickets, we don't see an additional revenue off of
that would be a solution to me if I was a legislator. If I was back in the legislature, I'd almost offer that. Let's just raise this particular fee for trucks coming through the state or something like that would say, all right, they're having to police these things coming through the state, and you know, somebody's got to police them. How are they going to pay for them?
I think it gets back to those basic services, and I think the citizens or even the industry in that situation would support that. I know the trucking association, one of our better allies, they're just professional truckers. They get it, they're professional, so they want those that are not doing it properly. They want that situation to be addressed, and they know if we're not properly funded, that's not going to be addressed. So one bad situation taints the entire trucking industry. So one of our best supporters is the Alabama Trucking Association. We're struggling to educate legislators to understand what the need is.
Well, that's a logical thing, though, isn't it?
It is. I can settle in your time, Steve. In my time, in 8 years, I never voted against law enforcement. Took some tough votes that were maybe a fee increase, but it went for law enforcement, it went for firefighters, always supported it. I don't know if that's the prevailing mentality anymore.
Well, it's a problem, and I think the entire general fund, but this to me is the one I've been illuminating. I said, it's not right for us to have 300 troopers out there, and we're a pretty big state.
Well, we are, Steve, but I think, I'm a lifelong conservative, but I believe the primary function of government is to provide public safety. At the national level, it's national defense. At the state level, it's public safety, it's law enforcement. We're not doing that in Alabama.
And all you're talking about is basic needs.
Basic needs.
Folks, our time's up. I told you to go by quick, Spencer. Folks, our guest tonight has been Spencer Collier, the Secretary of Alabama Law Enforcement Agency. We thank him taking out of his time to be with us, and we thank you viewers for watching Alabama Politics, and hope you tune again next week. Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you, Steve. Enjoy it.
Yes, sir.